On the Shoulders of Dwarves, a weekly podcast about role-playing games. Hello and welcome to episode 23 of On the Shoulders of Dwarves, a weekly podcast about role-playing games and the gamers who play them. My name is Eran Aviram.
My name is Uri Lifshitz, what's up?
And today we'll discuss personalizing your character. Now, when first Uri suggested this idea, I was wondering what he was talking about, because every player character is personalized to the person who plays her. But we're talking about something, I think, maybe a bit deeper, maybe something that not a lot of, especially first-time players, or even generally new players that have been playing for several years, haven't thought about, which is literally personalizing the mechanics, the rules, well, maybe not the rules, but at least the names to whatever fits you better. And it's an interesting, but maybe a bit touchy topic, so we'll have to discuss it at length.
Of course, all players' characters are personalized to some extent. They all have their own name, their own description. Most character sheet has a place where you can write your character's eye color, hair color, height, weight, body structure, and none of these are ever enough. Ever. Like, my character has fiery red hair, borderline ginger, and it's just never enough.
I never use those. I don't care. I don't care about my character's eye color or specific height. I'm taller than most and I can see pretty good, thank you. Pretty well.
Well, that's very handsome of you and of your character. But again, to emphasize, that is not what we want to talk about. We want to take the idea of personalizing your character to the next level. How not just to create a character that in your mind and hopefully in the minds of all the other players and the GM would seem distinct, alive, and standing on its own. We want to take personalization outside the story and really make it a part of the game mechanics that you play.
So let's give two examples so you know what we're actually talking about. Let's say in D&D. Dungeons & Dragons, it's a game you might know, Uri. There's nothing wrong with a barbarian that uses reckless attack, which is a feature that you get on first or second level. But you can also be a barbarian that uses bring in the hurt. Now it's the same thing, it just has a different name. Or in Savage Worlds, there's nothing wrong with being a fighter that uses fighting D8 and have the edge combat reflexes. But you can also be Fencer D8 with quick on his feet. Now, in all of these cases, we haven't yet changed anything at the mechanical level. Maybe as a barbarian, I want to call my reckless attack Bring in the Hurt to remind me what it is like when my barbarian uses reckless attack. He's not just reckless, he is willing and going to get hurt, and he anticipates it, maybe even wants it to come. He calls his reckless attack bring in the hurt.
It's not bring in the hurt, I'm bringing the hurt to my enemies. It's no, come on, bring it on, bring on the hurt, yeah.
On me. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, something that will help me in several ways. For example, I will see my characters different from other barbarians that have reckless attack. Not very different. We mechanically have gained exactly the same features, but mine has a different name and my barbarian is somewhat different because of that. Whenever I look at my character sheet and I see bring in the hurt, maybe in parentheses I also put reckless attack, page whatever, so I'll know where to look for the details if I need them. I now remind myself, just by the name, that I am invested in my character. I remind myself what is it like for the character to, in the game, use this feature. Again, he enjoys, or maybe not enjoys, but wants the damage. He wants to feel the pain. And it requires very little of me. I mean, it doesn't even require GM approval. I just changed a name of a feature for myself. Things are a bit different when we get to Savage Worlds because it's a generic system in which trappings have a lot of power. And trappings is basically how you describe a thing to happen. Like, for example, if you literally change combat reflex, which is an edge that just gives you +2 to recover from shaken. That means that you'll be able to act again if you got shaken quicker than if you didn't have the edge. If you change that to quick on his feet, nothing much happens, but it might mean, like, for example, if someone uses mind effect on you, okay? And that's why you're shaken, because you were hit with a psychic attack, then being quick on your feet might not work as well as if you were shaken because someone shot you in the leg. Because the reason that you are able to recover faster from shaken is that you are quick on your feet. That is, you think quickly, you act quickly, you are able to recover quickly from, whatever is happening around you. But if you got psychic damage, maybe you are unable to do so.
I know, but that makes the game more interesting.
I agree.
Because you commit to a specificity.
I completely agree. And it's even more powerful when you change fighting to fencer. Because that literally means that you are good with fencing, but might not be as good with a battle axe. But this is the kind of change that do require GM approval, I think, or at least GM discussion. And again, in a way, you might be losing something when you do it, so we should discuss this a bit more. Because if I'm changing fighting to fencer, I'm only losing my ability to use a battle axe. I don't really gain anything.
I'm going to look at this from a different perspective. I think everything here, more or less, should be part of a GM discussion. Not necessarily approval, because hell, if I'm changing my barbarian ability from reckless attack to bring in the hurt, I am defining something about my character. If all I did was change the name so it would be easier for me to remember, that's not what we're discussing now. Bring in the hurt is a personalization of your character, and the GM should know that your character, like it when it hurts during the battle, because he or she can use that. That's something that exists in the gaming world. That's a major important issue here. We're not saying, okay, change the name so it would be more colorful. No, change the name so it would be more meaningful. And if it has a meaning, other people around the table should be aware of that.
Okay, I agree. Let's continue. There are a lot of fine points to discuss here.
Indeed, because it's very easy to think that what we're talking about is just putting sprinkles on top. And that's not what we aim here. So I would like to make an important distinction here between what you do inside and using the game mechanic and what you do outside the game mechanic. Because inside the game mechanic, we don't have personalization, we have customization. We basically have the options of choosing feats, choosing skills that would better reflect our character. And that's a great option of personalizing your character in a way. I'm going to give you an example. My awesome swashbuckler fighter has also craft clothing. That's a skill which I place skill points in. So he could sew his own clothes and robes and whatever. Because my partner was watching Project One Way as I was writing the character sheet. True story. However, this might actually hurt me during gameplay. Because as a fighter, I have to invest a lot of skill points in order to be a good tailor. And those skill points should have been better utilized by somewhere else, by perception checks, etc. Something that would actually help me be a better fighter.
Yes, it seems as if you are only losing here.
Yeah, which is a problem. But again, I discover that whenever you go to your GM and say, listen, I want to take an extra few skill points and put them into something that has absolutely no importance from a character class perspective to make my character more interesting. And usually the result is, Hell, awesome! Put it into your backstory. Let's find the tailor in town where you were an apprentice. Let's do something awesome with this.
And also the GM can now, and well, a good GM will, use this to give it some effect, in-game mechanical effect, which, by the way, you described in previous episodes.
I did, because my GM is awesome.
Yes.
Lucky me. However, and let's move away to that which people less think about, you can also personalize your character outside of the game mechanic by using, specific colors, phrases. We have already mentioned renaming skills and feats. I would say you should even go further. Create specific phrases that your character is using. Use specific colors or imagery that would reflect how your character think and act. If you are a sea-bound character of some sort, you're a sailor, a pirate, a swashbuckler, or something like that, use metaphors originating in the sea. We can catch 2 fish with 1 rod using this maneuver, etc., etc. Or, let's get them before they foam dry on the seashore.
I want to talk about the most extreme type of personalization with a complete reinterpretation of the fluff that is attached to the mechanics. It's almost like the other way around from what you're talking about right now. It's when you, for example, say that your barbarian doesn't enter rage, she enters Zen mode. And you get the exact same mechanics, but the reason for it, the rationale in-game for it is completely different. She's in Zen mode. She doesn't feel the pain. She's able to deal huge amounts of damage because she can now hit in exactly the right locations and stuff like that. This is not what they meant when they wrote down rage. But it can be. It's just a complete reinterpretation of it.
What's a great example of that?
What?
Kung Fu Panda.
Okay, why?
Because I recently watched it, the first one, and you see all those Kung Fu masters who can do amazing stuff, and they're all very powerful, and they're all what we have in mind when we think Kung Fu, ancient martial art, and they can break walls, and they can blah, 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 blah. And enter this panda who's big and fat and black and white and in bad shape. And I'm not going to spoil the movie for those of you who haven't seen. I'm just going to highly recommend it. Suffice to say that the panda finds his own brand of Kung Fu. And you see exactly the way you mentioned it. He can fight at the end of the movie like anyone else, but with a whole different fluff to it. Another amazing reinterpretation of the fluff for martial art would be the movie Drunken Master starring Jackie Chan, in which basically you have someone who's this ultimate fighter, but he doesn't do it through the constant practice and Zen-like abilities which you might associate with Kung Fu, but because he's drunk. And he's so drunk that he managed to avoid the punching of his enemies and getting things done because he's drunk.
Now, this is the sort of thing that requires, I think, a lot of thoughts before committing to it, because even in a system that doesn't have trappings, even if it's not Savage Worlds, of course, will be completely overhauled by this. If you define something as something different, it is now something different. But in D&D, if you define your rage as Zen mode, that can have implications in various other places in the game. So it requires both you and the GM to be aware of it whenever you use it, and etc., etc. Which is doable. I'm not against it, but I personally don't usually do this sort of thing because it's a bit too much work, frankly, for me. I prefer a type of personalization that we've all discussed and we'll be discussing again, where you just change some names and maybe specific ways your character consider things to happen in-game.
Which is awesome. A lot of players don't even do that, and I think it's a damn shame because it gives an amazing, powerful aspect to any description done in your game.
Let's just continue to talk a bit about personalizing the game mechanics.
Yay! Personalizing game mechanics is something which I love. I love tweaking with the game system itself. The most basic of which, like we mentioned before, is changing the name and of rules and abilities to better reflect the character. One example might be to change the name of all your skills and feats and abilities, which I love.
All of them is a bit too much for me.
Yes. I'm going to give a disclaimer here. Whenever I say all, assume I've said some.
I'm just so energetic and excited that they just go to the extreme.
Sometimes I just can't find a better name than the one that they already gave. So, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Now, I usually change the names of skills and abilities of my character to something that better express my character. I'm going to give an example. I have a swashbuckler now, like I mentioned. Krieger van Messer is his name. And he has an ability called Charmed Life, because swashbucklers always do something where they live it large, and like few times a day when something terrible should happen to him, it probably doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he has this charmed life. But I'm thinking that my character is so completely focused on what he is currently doing that he is totally oblivious to the fact that this 800-ton rock just missed him by an inch. So I've changed the ability Charmed Life to Living in La La Land. Because in his mind, he's of course it didn't hit me. I'm living in La La Land. I'm the hero of this story. Woo! Etc. And it's amazing how much of a different feel you get when you use your own phrases and description rather than just the game mechanic. I always make sure when I remember to notify the GM in advance so he won't look at me really weird like, wait, how did you get past that reflex save? I was living in La La Land. Okay, that obviously apparently give you a bonus. Okay, moving on. Now, in another example would be in my previous campaigns, two of the character in the party took a feat that allowed them to do extra damage when they were helping each other flank an opponent. It was awesome. It was very nice. It did a lot of extra damage, which we sorely needed. But it only started to be cool when they changed the name of that feat to Meat Cleaver. So we're going to flank him? No, we're going to Meat Cleaver him. And that's already a specific state of mind. We're not here to do extra damage. We're here to mince enemies.
Now, there is an aspect to this personalization that we've talked about a moment ago, and I want to come back to. And that's the question of, well, if I've changed my fighting to fencing, does that mean I'm only a fencer now? Now, I think that in most cases, these sort of changes doesn't have to come with mechanical implication. They might, but they don't have to. Like, for example, it might be that my fencing is still fighting that is only colored by my fencing training. Like, for example, if I'm attacking with a giant battle axe, I might do it with the same die. I don't get any minuses, any pluses, nothing. I just swing in the prosciutto inward slice because that is the sort of way that I'm used to. That's how my character interprets attacking with a battle axe. She still thinks in fencing terms. Or it might be that because she's really only practiced with fencing, she's not used to blunt heavy striking weapons like a battle axe, and I literally get a -1 on the check. You don't have to do this. You can choose either of these two possibilities. The second one, of course, is more real, I'm doing air quotes, if that's important in your game. And I should note that Savage World actually have skill specialization rules that are basically everything that we just talked about. So it's up to you guys, GM and player, and actually other players as well, because other players might not like it that your fencer used the battle axe without any minuses because it's not real and they want a more real game, and that's fine. So this should be part of the discussion. I just want to make it clear that this sort of personalization does not necessarily lead to a sort of a disadvantage, either mechanical or otherwise.
I actually see any kind of this personalization as a challenge, because I will take any situation in which I should have had some sort of disadvantage because of my personalization, and I'm gonna look for a way to make it more awesome by actually using that personalization. So if we'll take, for example, your fencer from before. He's a fencer. From some reason, his rapier, whatever, was pushed away, and he had to pick up a battle axe. Now, one option would be, okay, I have a battle axe. I'm getting a minus to my attacks because it's really big and heavy and clumsy, and I'm a fencer now. I've changed the fighting ability to the fencer ability. Another option would be, interesting, and take that battle axe, bounce it against the wall so half of it would break, and use a tiny slither of wood and use that as a fencing implement, and smack people in the eye with it, etc., etc. Always find that interesting way of how you can use that fencing ability in conjunction with that battle axe. Oh, I'm a fencer, I'm quick on my feet. Okay, I wedge the battle axe into the wall, light-footedly jump on it, and use that extra height to kick my enemy in the face. Because I'm a fencer, that almost rhyme with a dancer, so that's like, it should work.
I agree. It can be a lot of fun. Let's discuss a bit personalizing the character sheets that you are using, because I think it's a big deal. You don't have a lot of physical things when you play role-playing games. You might have dice or cards, and you probably have miniatures or maybe a map or something like that. You have a DM screen, and everyone have their own character sheets. And I think that most people see the character sheet as a way to keep some information, but it can be so much more. It can be inspiring. It can be used to help with what you've just discussed. For example, you can personalize it by adding some simple drawings. I don't mean anything too much. Most of us probably don't know how to draw and can't draw for the life of it. But simply adding a few simple drawings will help make your character sheet your character sheet. It can be like tiny eyes at the bottom of it, or it can be like these squirrely little lines on the sides, or anything that will make this character sheet feel a bit more, this is my character. This
is my character sheet. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Yeah. You can also, for example, write little notes or simple thoughts about your items. Just keeping a list of items is fine, but keeping a list of items with something in brackets next to it saying like, my greatest treasure, where does this fit, or something like that, will help make it into a list of your character's items and not just items. You can, for example, also write a relationship with other characters or with NPCs or locations. It's something that most character sheets don't allow for. There's no room specifically on the sheet for relationships, which is, I think, a huge, huge missed opportunity, because character sheets should not only contain all technical, mechanical aspect of it, it should also be used to inspire you and remind you and keep information that will help you play the game better. And writing a few, even tiny little sentences like, I really hate him because of the thing in the pub, or maybe something can happen between us if only she'll be chiller. Something like that can be really helpful in reminding you what you think or want from other characters and what's fun to you, what sort of emotional engagement you're already in the middle of. I also think you should probably write down your own profession / class / job / role / archetype, whatever, and even if there isn't one in the system. Like being a barbarian is fine, but being
the raging whirlwind of destruction,
yes, of the northern tribes is a lot better. You can, again, probably put barbarian in brackets next to it, because you want to know what it means mechanical-wise. You still need it, and that's fine. but it's a lot better to introduce yourself as this thing, to think of yourself as this thing and not as barbarian. Also, you can write a few tiny little things about what's quirky about your weapon. Maybe the handle is a bit loose. How does your damage look like when you shoot the laser? Is it like puffy with these red after images in the eyes of someone that shoot it? What's painted on your armor? It can all just be a tiny simple adjective that you write next to the thing. Like next to damage, red blast. Next to your armor, heavy mammoth leather instead of just leather. It's these small things that will help you reimagine the physical aspects of your character when you actually come and do whatever it is that you do in the game.
Indeed. I remember in our last live recording, whenever someone would step up to ask a question, I would ask them, okay, so please introduce yourself, and were you to cast Magic Missile now, how would your Magic Missiles would look?
Yes.
And that's a very, for me, it's an important question, because that's like a lot of personalization go on there. That's like the simplest attack spell most wizards have, and plenty of times people will not take the time to simply think about what it looks like. Do I shoot flaming skulls? Do I shoot rays of light? Are there like little sparrows which explode on touch? I don't know, but any one of those are awesome.
But what I think should be done is you should write it down.
Definitely.
As well. Next to Magic Missile. You don't learn Magic Missile. You learn Burning Skull of Evangrad that explodes. And Magic Missile in brackets. Because that's your spell. That's what you cast and that's how it looks like.
Indeed. Now, I would even suggest taking this whole character sheet personalization a step forward and create your own personalized character sheet. It's not that hard. You just take a regular character sheet and you write down at the bottom a list of all the pirates' alphabet, and voila, you have a character sheet personalized for pirates or other sea-related characters. Of course, for those of you who don't know, the 10 letters of the pirates' alphabet are I, R, and the 7 C's. Now, I, as a game master, sometimes would create personalized character sheets for all my players because I want them to be in theme with the adventure I'm currently running. You know what? I'm going to give a link in the show notes for one of those character sheets, which is in Hebrew. And I would like you, if you have a moment, to go in, look at that character sheet and try to think if you can tell what gaming system it is and what's the theme of that adventure, simply by looking at that personalized character sheet.
I will also give links to some personalized character sheets of Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is a game that really knows how to personalize and give some thick themes to whatever's going around. And just to give some examples. But again, the character sheet from DCC RPG, for example, are high quality with some very heavy, well-produced art design, and not all of us, Uri, can do it. So if I want to actually personalize the entire character sheet to my campaign, to my character, how can I do it?
Well, I'm gonna give him some trade secrets here, folks. So please don't spread this around. You simply take your character sheet in some form of electronic format. You paste it into Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you just copy other things onto it, or you change the color. That is all. And that is amazing. It has an amazing effect. That's all you need to do.
I think that those of us that are maybe less inspired can certainly turn to your favorite Facebook group or Reddit. May I recommend our Facebook group on the Shoulder of Dwarves and ask for advice and suggestions about how to do it, and maybe art. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you can and should discuss in role-playing groups, just like any other topic of role-playing games. Designing and personalizing character sheets is a big thing, I think.
It's big and it's fun, and if you're doing it for your character, you might as well do it for your group or for other characters. I love doing it. My previous group, when I created the personalized character sheets for everyone, as a player, mind you, not as the GM, I think it helps for everyone. And even if, you know what, I also created just a notes page, which is basically go into Word, create a table with 50 empty rows, and at the top just write really big besters best notes, and print 5 copies and get one for each player. That's it. That's awesome, because you have something with your party name at the top.
Yeah.
So it's loads of fun because it gives everyone at the table something which is special just for this campaign. And once there's something written on it, something which is special just for that character. Also, pretty much everyone at the table have dice. I'm just saying, using a specific dice set for your specific character or specific game is another way to personalize. In my case, it sometimes even change my character completely. I'm currently playing a character. His color were black and red because he's a Cheliaxian warlord of sort, a nobleman of Cheliax, and the national colors are black and red. And I couldn't find my dice for the first game, so I took a different set with a rainbow theme dice. And that has completely changed the way my character interacted, because I couldn't play a foreboding, gruesome character who rolls his damage and skill with rainbow colored dice. I just couldn't. And so now I have this flamboyant, fabulous character, which is so much more fun, thanks to my dice.
Finally, listeners, if you guys maybe know about someone on Fiverr or someone on Patreon that custom design character sheets, do tell us. We'd like to share it with anyone else that is listening as well, in the show notes, in the comments, or in our Facebook group, so other people can use these services as well. Of course, if you provide these services yourself, feel free to just share it with us.
I remember 2 weeks ago, I've seen on Twitter a post by Thabita Grow, which do cute Dungeon and Dragon 5th edition character sheets in pink. Like
awesome.
This most beautiful, hilarious character sheet. We're going to put a link in the show notes. I think it's $10 for a character sheet.
That's basically it. Uri, do we have anything else to say as we summarize this topic?
Yes. Personalize your character. Personalize your gaming system. Personalize your game. It's your game. It's your character. Make it your own.
Excellent. Let us now continue to take the load off. When we take the load off, we talk a bit about what is happening in our lives regarding role-playing games. Uri, what have you been doing with yourself this past week?
I've been role-playing! Yay! Role-playing is awesome. Best hobby in the world. We came up with a very interesting rule in our gaming group this week. It's called the game plan rule. Because in battle we would usually be very much in sync, but in social circumstances, like diplomacy roles and bluff roles and making a more intricate plan than offer him money or stabbing him, usually backfire on us. So we implemented the game plan rule. So basically, in any time, a player can simply say, okay, guys, game plan, and we all stop what we're doing, talk and listen to each other, and then decide on a plan and then performing it. Now, this is something that would happen to us very naturally during combat. And now we decided to actually implement it throughout the whole game, and it really improved the game. Because if someone feels left out or not heard, you can simply go, okay, guys, game plan. I would suggest doing ABC. Someone else would say, okay, why don't we try D and H as well? Now, okay, let's maybe try to coordinate between these two, or each player doing his own thing and meet again afterward. So I would suggest people, if you feel that sometimes not everyone are heard around the table, or that there's specific types of encounters that you're not very in sync about what to do in, simply go, hey guys, Game plan time.
Let's continue. I ran a game last week. A game, because that's what's going with me these days. I run games instead of continuing campaigns. Hopefully next week I'm going back to my 50 Fathoms campaign of Savage World that I've been really looking forward to. That I really missed it. I'm really happy that we're back. But I have another thing to say, which is completely different and has nothing to do with this role-playing game. Last week, I said that we're going to have a launch of the Book of Crystal Heart Chapter 2 in Leisure Games in London.
With the game of Crystal Heart, yay!
The game, the actual rule book for Crystal Heart is a few months away at least, but yeah. So now we have an event, a Facebook event, and everything is up. It'll be on May 6th in Leisure Games, starting at 12 at noon. And I will be running a game, a Crystal Heart game, starting at 2, and it'll be about 3 hours. If you want to sign up for it, do so now. There are 5 places, and all of the details are in the Facebook event, and we'll give a link in the show notes. If you want to buy any of our amazing merchandise, and I say ours, I don't mean mine and Uri, because our merchandise is not for sale. I mean Aviv, Or, and I, then you can come and do it as well. We now have dice trays that look fantastic. Aviv created new art for it. It looks really good. I'll give a link in the show notes.
That woman is so talented. And that man who writes the scripts, also very talented.
So true, yes. He's so good at editing episodes of podcasts, and that's it. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, awesome! How about you come back next week for another one? And if you do, maybe share with a friend or an enemy. It can be anyone, really. If you like it, maybe other people will like it as well. It'll be super useful to us if you'll spread it in the world.
Amuse your friend, confuse your enemies. Share an episode of On the Shoulders of Dwarves.
Excellent. Rate us on whatever platform you are using. We don't know what it is. There are so many different platforms. Just rate us with a bloop or a review of, they have accents, or I don't know, whatever you think about us, write it down. It will be great.
And on that fine note, we will meet you next week.
Indeed.
Later out.
On the Shoulder of Dwarves is shared under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial form. The intro and outro are taken from Silly Fun by Kevin MacLeod. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution Free. Find us at dwarvcast.net and follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Okay.
Do you want to talk about barbarians?
Yes. I was in the wrong page. I was looking about the previous episode and I was wondering, why should I discuss stimulation when it doesn't matter at all?
Eran, it's very important, both for us and for any gaming group, to be on the same page.
On the same page, yes.
Okay. I'll show myself out, thank you.